Hey, welcome to day 2 of Desert Palm Press readings by their authors. We're super excited you took time out of your day to join us. Ellen Hoil is still running around in the background. She is doing IT things for us today. She and I met at GCLS in Pennsylvania back when we still did those live. So we've known each other for a couple of years. And then I met some folks at the LCLC because Desert Palm Press and my publisher Sapphire co-sponsor that. So a lot of these folks on the screen I got to meet in person a couple of years ago. Look forward to being able to see them in person in a few years. But that's our plan for today. So we're super excited that if you enter by putting a like or comments or questions on the sidebar Facebook, I don't know which way I'm pointing, so just pretend I'm pointing the right way, you'll be entered their contest for a giveaway, which is a library giveaway of their books. So that's pretty awesome. You can also get some signed author copies. There'll be some ebooks. I don't know what other swag. And if you cannot wait and maybe didn't win, you can get them at Desert Palm Press directly off their website and save 10%. So if you need to go to Amazon, we still love you. But if you want to save a little cabbage, you can go right to their website. So we're looking forward to a great afternoon. I am going to hush and introduce our first reading person today. Jazzy and I met at LCLC. She is from Portland, Oregon. She has 4 contemporary lesbian romance novels out, which is what I like to write too. And she has won a Rainbow Award honorable mention for one of her books. She has some other books out, and her latest novel is called Undertow. So what are you going to read to us today, Jazzy?
Hi, I'm going to read from Undertow today.
Awesome.
And Undertow, in case you don't know, is about Maggie Ambrose, who is a 56-year-old career politician running for president. And I'm going to read from chapter 15, which is in 1995, the very first election that she participates in. She is in the middle of an acrimonious divorce from her husband, Timmy, and his powerful family has taken steps to sabotage her election. So, here we go. By the time Maggie realized the Pearsons were behind a series of op-eds published in the Daily Item and the Boston Globe, filled with derogatory, false allegations, it was too late to implement enough damage control to win the election. What had seemed like an easy win became a firm slap across her face. She cleared herself of the most egregious accusations through several interviews, but the damage was done. Gulping down her drink, Maggie felt exhausted. Her plans to rise from the ashes like a phoenix had failed. She was a loser, even more than the old man on the stage singing Baby Got Back. The man's hoary appearance emphasized the absurdity of his song choice. He swayed on his feet, microphone catching his spittle as he muttered half of the lyrics, squinting through his spectacles at the words, following across the karaoke machine. She slouched in her seat at the back of the Porthole pub, not interested in doing anything but drinking. For one night, she was determined not to care what she looked like or who saw her or how she was abusing her body. I should have known better. Maggie pushed her empty glass away, ready to stumble up to the bar to order another one. Next to her sat a teacher she met while coaching the mock trial team. June Murphy was an Irish lass with auburn hair, green eyes, and freckles. This was her first year teaching history, and like Maggie, she wanted to give back to the community, which helped her while growing up. Come on, Maggie, how could you know? Your ex is a dick, and so is his family. They have no morals and no integrity. They didn't have to drag your name through the mud. That was pure pettiness. You need to shake it off and move on. Be ready to run for the next election. Maybe get someone to help you so this won't happen again. Yeah, because it's such a high-profile election, I'm sure people will be lining up to help me. Maggie began to rise, but June's hand on her arm stopped her. You stay here and enjoy the entertainment. She jerked her head toward the old guy, now trying to sing Love Shack. He was sitting on a stool this time, and Maggie was convinced he'd fall off before the end of the song. I'll get you the refill. Thanks. Maggie stared at her Nokia mobile phone, one of the few items she took with her from her previous law firm. It was state-of-the-art, cutting-edge technology, enabling her to receive calls even when not at home or at work. She pulled up Helen's phone number and hit the call button. After meeting Helen 3 months ago at a political meet and greet, she met with her twice to discuss policy. The woman was opinionated as hell, but Maggie found it didn't bother her. Helen backed her words with facts instead of mere opinion. She explained what was needed for adolescents and how certain programs could alter the courses of troubled teens. If such programs had existed while she and her brother were teens, perhaps Mike wouldn't have started to steal. Maybe he wouldn't have drifted away from her. The cell phone rang several times before she heard a crackling noise and a familiar voice. Hello? Hi, Helen. It's Maggie. That's what she tried to say. It came out less clear than she wanted, her mouth refusing to enunciate the words. Maggie? Is that you? It sounds loud where you are. Yeah, sorry. I'm at the porthole, just chilling. Someone's trying to sing. That's probably what you hear. Maggie smiled at June as she deposited a drink in front of her. Are you okay? You're not alone, are you? Nah, I'm here with my friend. She exhaled loudly, switching hands as her wrist became tired. I lost. Helen was silent long enough that Maggie pulled the phone away from her ear to make sure they weren't disconnected. Hello? Still there? Yes, I'm still here. I'm sorry you lost. Do you want me to come down there? No. It's late. I'm sorry I called. I don't know why I called. I'm gonna go. Sorry. Maggie pulled the phone away, but hearing Helen's voice, she placed it against her ear once more. What? I said, please be safe. As a matter of fact, send me an email once you get home. Don't forget. Email. Right. Wait. Maggie looked through her purse and not seeing a pen, she dumped the entire contents on the sticky table. Coins rolled on the floor, but Maggie paid them no mind. With one hand, she sifted through loose breath mints, tissues, a small notebook, a candy wrapper, and paper clips, crowing in triumph when she found a pen. You still there? Hold on. Maggie placed the phone on the table, took off the pen cap, and wrote on her palm, Email Helen. She stared at the scribbles, cocking her head. She turned her palm toward June. Can you read this? June stared at her hand. Crawl home? She raised her eyebrows. That's not necessary. I'll drive you home. Grunting, Maggie tried again, writing underneath the two words. Well, she tried to, but her words crossed through the first attempt, making a royal mess. She handed the pen to June. Can you write Email Helen on my hand? She extended her other hand, relieved when June did as requested. Thanks. Picking up the phone, Maggie stared at it. She heard something on the other end. She looked to June. Was I on the phone? June's eyes widened. She nodded and took the phone. Hi, this is June. We haven't met. I just want to let you know that I'll make sure Maggie gets home safely and that she sends you an email. Okay? She chuckled. No problem. Bye. Blinking several times, Maggie wondered why it was so hard to focus. Maybe the haze of cigarette smoke was obscuring her vision, or the time of night, or that horrible singing. She gulped down her drink and smacked her lips. June set the phone on the table before proceeding to place the bag's innards back into Maggie's purse. Thanks. Hey, you're a good friend. Maggie smiled, her cheeks stretching. It felt weird. She touched her cheeks. Hey, I think something's wrong with me. My cheeks are frozen, but I'm not cold. You're okay. I'm getting tired. Let me drive you home. But my car, we left it at your apartment, remember? June stood waiting for Maggie to get up. She placed a hand on her bicep, waiting until Maggie nodded before leading the way out of the restaurant. Right, that was smart. She leaned against the car door until June unlocked it. Here, let me. June opened the front passenger door for her. Watch your head. Misjudging how low to duck as she tried to slide on the seat, Maggie's head hit the edge of the door and she wobbled. She grabbed the door frame and waited until the stars faded before attempting once more to climb in. Are you okay? June pushed Maggie's head and feet into the interior before closing the door and rushing around to the driver's side. Did you hurt yourself? Nah, didn't hurt at all, but I bet it's gonna hurt tomorrow. Maggie guffawed, tickled by how hard she hit her head, how uncooperative her body was, how shit-faced she was. Yeah, tomorrow was gonna suck for a variety of reasons, not the least of which would be a horrendous hangover. Right now, though, All those eventualities were far away. Somehow June got her inside. She ended up writing and sending the email to Helen from Maggie's computer, letting her know Maggie was home. Well, Maggie shouted out helpful suggestions. Tell her about the the singer. Oh, tell her about me hitting my head. That was funny. June helped her to bed. Maggie flopped on top of the sheets, too tired to get under the covers. She knew what was happening, but she was uncoordinated and logy. So tired. The exhaustion she felt earlier washed across her once more. As her body relaxed into her bed, she thanked June for being a great friend. She tried to stay awake to hear June's reply, but she fell asleep within seconds. Thanks.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Is there a follow-up book to that you're working on right now? What's your projects?
No, I will get back to this, but for now, I am writing book 2 of You Matter, which was my third book. And that was about someone who tries to gun down an attorney because she loses his case. So I'm going to write book 2, which occurs 5 years later, and it's the daughter of the gunner, and she is out to get revenge for her father's ultimate death and get back at that attorney, whose name is Reggie, for ruining her family's life.
Wow. Well, cool. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you again at the end after everyone reads to answer questions. I'm sure people are typing them on the side. Put some comments, likes, shares, and you'll be entered to win a set of books. So that's pretty generous. And there's also going to be ebooks and some signed autograph copies of books that you can get. So if you're watching this week, if we see you there, we'll hook you up. Oh, there she is. Oh, I got dizzy for a minute.
That's all right. And I'll be giving an autographed version of Undertow. So I hope someone will get it and let me know how they find it.
Yeah, awesome. It's a good book. All right. Our second reader today is Rae D. Magdon, and she is from New York. You'll know as soon as she starts chit-chatting away, but she's from Gainesville, Florida now, so we still love her to death. She is also an award-winning author with Desert Palm Press, and her newest novel is Lucky 8. She's got a whole bunch of them on this list here, and the font is about a size 4, so I may let her share some of that. And what you can read from today?
I am going to read from Lucky 8. It is the sequel to Lucky 7, which is my award-winning cyberpunk adventure. Mm-hmm. The series, Lucky Breaks, of which there are 2 books out now, there's going to be 3 total, is about a crew of queer misfits in the future who are running virtual heists on corporations. Oh. So it's a little bit like if Ocean's 11 took place in a cyberpunk future. Cool. Now, I'm going to read from chapter 2 of Lucky 8. And the main character, Sasha, who is the leader of the team, is looking at her clone for the first time. Friday, August 28th, 2065. 2,256 hours and 8 seconds. A high-pitched whir comes from inside the tube. Bubbles stream through the viscous blue liquid, causing the electrode wires to sway. Despite the disturbance, the clone stays still. Only her eyes move, darting behind their closed lids. I turn to Val. What's happening? I have vague recollections of my own awakening, but I've never observed the process before. Cloning is rare these days, since the ultra-rich prefer to grow replacement parts a la carte. Only a few complete clones are grown as body doubles, or corporate heirs. I am awakening her autonomic nervous system and downloading several educational programs, Val informs me. In the interest of full disclosure, some of these programs were originally created by Axis Generations and others by Megan. I frown. When it comes to creating sentient beings who aren't terrifying forces of destruction, my ex-girlfriend Megan only has a 50% success rate, Val herself being the success. Megan's other attempt, Dragon, almost killed us. You sure that's a good idea, Val? I have implemented numerous quality and safety modifications. Additionally, I have written several programs myself designed to teach muscle coordination and speech, a basic overview of humanity's history, and the ability to empathize with other sentient beings. You can teach her empathy? Since you strenuously objected to the installation of your personal memories, as was the process in the past, I have created unique formative experiences for this purpose. Val offers the clone a look that's almost tender. One of these involves a birthday party. Jealousy eats my stomach. How come the clone gets to start off with good memories about birthday cake and toys? My resentment feels almost childish, but there's nothing to do except bury those issues. This clone is my responsibility. I won't undo Val's hard work by fucking the clone up with my baggage on the first day of her life. Inside the tube, the clone kicks her right foot. Testing muscle response via primary motor cortex stimulation, Val announces. The clone moves her legs, followed by her arms and shoulders, as much as the person-sized tube will allow. Suddenly, her eyes snap open. I take an involuntary step back. The clone's irises are almost as black as her pupils. Even though they're identical to mine, something about them sends a chill straight through me. Air hisses into the tube, and fluid drains from the bottom. The clone's brown skin gleams, tinted blue by the glowing lights. Once her mouth is free, she takes her first breath. As her chest jerks outward, I flash back to the pain of my own awakenings. The forced expansion of my lungs burned like hell every time. I don't realize I'm touching the tube's plexiglass until I feel its smooth surface beneath my palm. The gesture is instinctive. I want to be closer to this person who looks so much like me, to meet her. Jealousy aside, she was created with my DNA. That makes her family, in a weird way. Not the most important kind of family, the kind forged in the crucible of life, but family nonetheless. I don't like the idea of her experiencing pain. The clone watches me with wide eyes. The fluid has drained to her chest, and she drags her hands through it. With some effort, she presses her palm against the glass, directly over mine. Can she hear me? I wonder aloud. It took a while for my hearing to kick in during my awakenings. No, Val says. The enclosure is soundproof. I step closer and exhale against the glass. My breath makes a cloud of condensation, which I draw on with my fingertip. A circle, 2 eyes, and a mouth. A smiley face. The clone's lips spread in a matching smile. She wiggles her right hand. I wave back. It's like seeing a little kid wave at you on the street. Returning the gesture is just something you do. The fluid finishes draining. More air whooshes through the tube, blowing across the clone's wet body, and the glass walls sink into the floor. The clone tries to step forward, but the tube hasn't finished lowering. Her shin bumps the edge of the glass and she falls. I rush to catch her. She trips into my arms, clutching my shirt with damp hands until I help her straighten. Careful. No. I glance at Val. Give her a chance to practice. At the moment, her understanding of speech is only theoretical. The clone's face screws up in concentration, and her lips move awkwardly. Thank you. You're welcome. I release her and open one of the supply cabinets, withdrawing a towel. Here. The clone reaches for the towel, but misses by several inches. She pulls a face, then tries again, catching the towel and drying her head. As she wipes the remnants of fluid from her limbs, her movements become noticeably more confident. Apparently, a little practice goes a long way. My smile becomes more genuine. It's kind of cute, like watching a toddler learn to walk, even if said toddler is 6 feet tall and fully developed. Once she's slightly less sticky, the clone tries to return the towel, thrusting it toward me. Why don't you keep that till we get to the showers? You taught her how to do that, right, Val? She should be capable of maintaining her own personal hygiene without assistance. However, a loud metallic crash fills the medbay, causing my adrenaline mods to kick in. I take a deep breath and relax when I see that the clone has only knocked over one of the IV poles next to Doc's exam table. The clone steps back, holding her hands up with a sheepish grin. Sorry, she says, dropping the towel onto the floor. However, Val continues, with a hint of dryness, there will be a learning curve. And that's it. Thank you.
That's great. I'm glad that you read that today. I've read some of your other books, and I have not read that one, so I'm gonna be putting that on my to-be read list for sure.
Yeah, I
So,
highly recommend reading Lucky Seven first because it follows the
okay.
same cast of characters. But yeah, it's my favorite book I've written is Lucky Seven and Lucky Eight.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate that. That's gonna be fun. Well, I have some questions. I'll wait till the end when everybody else has questions too, and we'll go from there. So it was fun to visit with you today. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Our next person that's going to read with us today is Jane Alden. I did get to meet her at Elsie. Elsie, she's from California now, but she's from Arkansas. So we talk things Southern every so often. And her book, Jobina's Blues, is the one I heard her read from 2 years ago there, and it won an award. So I guess Desert Palm Press is just covered up with award-winning authors. So reminder that if you comment and ask questions, you'll be entered in the drawing to win a set of books. And now I look forward to hearing what you want to share with us, Jane. How you doing?
Great. Terrific. Thanks, McGee.
Good.
I'm going to read from The Crystal's Curse.
Oh, cool.
Get my fingers off it. The Crystal's Curse is my third book. First two were romances, and The Crystal's Curse is a murder mystery with some romance mixed in there as well. It's early summer in 1972. Ari Morgan is about to graduate from Barnard College. She narrates the story. That morning, I crossed the grassy area in front of Millbank Hall, stepping through an obstacle course of sunbathers, trying to avoid casting my shadow on anyone. The key in the palm of my balled-up fist felt slippery. I had been unconsciously gripping it like a totem. If I hung on tightly enough, things might change. Across Broadway from Barnard College, a clock tower on the Columbia campus began chiming 11 o'clock. I opened the heavy double doors of Millbank and took the stairs two at a time to Dr. Eleanor Frame's second-floor classroom. I watched through the glass as she paced confidently in front of the blackboard, then turned to emphasize some point she was making with a bold, slashing chalk mark underneath the phrase, symbolism in Mrs. Dalloway. Eleanor had earned her reputation as an expert on Virginia Woolf, and she was proud of her accomplishments in the academic world. Her classes were always full. Today, 20 or so students, all women, except one guy sitting in the back row, hung on her every word. I recognized the looks on their faces, slightly parted lips, small smile, glazed eyes, adoration of Dr. Frame, the same expression I wore just a year before. What could possibly motivate the lone guy to take modernist women authors in the early 20th century? One of the great things about Barnard was you could be attending a small women's college while still having access to Columbia across the street. The students at Columbia had the same opportunity to take Barnard classes, but the men hardly ever did. And this guy didn't look like a Virginia Woolf fan. The end of class buzzer broke the spell, and people began gathering their books and leaving. I stood outside as the guy stopped to flirt with Eleanor. That explained what he was doing in the class. He was barking up the wrong tree, was what he was doing. I actually felt sorry for him for an instant. Eleanor turned and began erasing the blackboard, talking to him over her shoulder, a dismissive signal he finally picked up on, to my relief. He nodded to me on his way out, and I stepped around him and inside the door. Hello, Eleanor. She stopped erasing the board in mid-swipe. Ari, I brought your key. I slapped it down on the desk harder than I intended, making a comically loud pop that caused both of us to jump. Sorry. I lined the key up squarely alongside her briefcase. I got all my things out, so... She looked around the empty classroom before reacting. Oh, babe, you could have left the key in the apartment. I guess. I didn't think of that. She checked her watch. It's a little early, but do you want some lunch or maybe some coffee? I didn't, but I did. Are you done with finals? I nodded. Let's get some coffee. Outside on the grass, a sunbather sat up, leaning on an elbow and shielding her eyes with one hand. Allison, one of my roommates. Hi, Ari. Hi, Dr. Frame. Ari, will you be around tonight? We're toasting the class of 72. She pretended to hide her mouth from Eleanor. With champagne. I nodded. I'll be there. Eleanor steered us toward the campus gate off Broadway. Let's go across the street to Columbia, more privacy. She glanced at me while we waited for a break in the traffic. Does she know about us? Not for me, she doesn't. She's not stupid, though. She may have noticed I don't spend many nights in the dorm. I thought she gave me a knowing look. I'd miss a lot about my 6-month affair with Eleanor. I started making a list in my head. Number 1, she was hot as hell. Underneath the silk blouse and A-line skirt, tastefully accessorized with a set of perfectly matched pearls, she had the body of Wonder Woman. We passed a plate glass window and our reflections followed us down the sidewalk. The couple in the window brought up number 2 on my list. Even though Eleanor looked ultra graceful and feminine, and my Oxford cloth shirt and penny loafers would be most generously described as tailored, she was in charge. She was the top in bed. She decided what we did and when we did it. I loved that paradox. And the all-important number 3 on my list, everybody wanted her. For a while anyway, I had her. Call me shallow. But I could also make another list of what I wouldn't miss. Number 1, she was paranoid that people like my roommate Allison would find out about us. Even though it was common knowledge that every semester she took on an acolyte to worship at the altar of her wonderfulness. It was practically an item in the freshman orientation handbook. The fact I got picked during my senior year gave me some standing among the lesbians on campus. Again, call me shallow. We never went anywhere together in public. We spent all our time in her apartment, a really swanky one, on the Upper East Side on 96th, overlooking the park. She acquired the place in a divorce settlement. We stayed in bed or read aloud to each other or worked out in a room furnished as a fully equipped gym. After a semester of our affair, I was a lot more sexually sophisticated. I was beginning to understand Gertrude Stein, and I was in the best shape of my life. Against my will, my mind skipped back to the list of things I'd miss. Number 4, she was really smart and also really funny. When I told her I was starting to get Gertrude Stein's prose, she said, Alice B. Toklas wrote in her journal, "This has been a most wonderful evening. Gertrude has said things tonight it will take her 10 years to understand." Eleanor may be the only person in the world who knows that quote and finds exactly the right time to toss it into a casual conversation. Listing the good and bad wasn't a good way to make me feel better about the breakup. I tried to create numbers 2 and 3, etc., of things I wouldn't miss, but came up empty. She was pretty great. And she never misled me. She was clear from the beginning about what our relationship meant to her. It had a shelf life of a few months. Some metal cafe tables with spindly-legged chairs, mostly unoccupied, sat across from the coffee cart. We took our coffee to one of the tables. She leaned toward me with her forearms braced on the tipsy table. I recognized the crease between her brows, signaling her tension. Babe, are you all right? Number 2 on the list of dislikes. Babe. I hated her calling me that. I moved the table a little, trying to find a steadier spot for it. No, but I will be. She searched my face, then blew out a breath and took a sip of her coffee. I decided to let her off the hook. I'm starting the creative writing program in September at Columbia, thanks to your helping me get the tuition grant. That was easy. You're a wonderful writer. Thanks. I'll get a summer job, probably in the library again. She opened her briefcase and took out a piece of cream-colored notepaper, folded in half. She tapped the paper against her thumbnail. I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was weighing whether to show it to me or not. I may have an idea for your summer. She made up her mind and handed it to me. It was heavy paper, the kind you'd find in a little shop on Madison Avenue, where you wander in some Saturday afternoon, look around, and ask yourself, who in hell would pay this kind of money for paper? I unfolded it. On it was written in bold hand, Cassandra Stillwell, and a phone number. I tossed the paper back on the table between our coffee cups. Who's she? She's an acquaintance of mine, a visiting professor at Columbia. She's looking for an assistant for the summer, and she asked me if I knew anyone. I told her I might. What kind of an assistant? She's an archaeologist, quite a well-known one. She's going to Egypt in a few days, and she wants a helper to go with her. Why would you think of me? I don't know anything about archaeology or Egypt. You're a wonderful writer and detail-oriented, and your main job would be keeping a careful record of her work, sort of a scribe. Also, you'd be a good temperamental match for her. You're level-headed, and Cass is unconventional and intense. Intense how? She's quite brilliant, I think, but she has some unusual theories about research in archaeology. She challenges some of the commonly held ideas about the subject, but don't ask me any details. I'm out of my depth. I met her socially. I get the impression she doesn't mind upsetting the gray-haired white guys in her discipline. So far, Eleanor was listing reasons Cassandra Stillwell should pick me to go with her to Egypt. Why did she think working for this archaeologist would be a good idea for me? From Eleanor's point of view, my being in the middle of the Sahara Desert, halfway around the world, would serve one purpose for sure. This job would get me out of town and off her conscience, out of sight and out of mind. Why should I consider it? I took some sadistic pleasure making her sweat a little. She picked up the phone number and absent-mindedly unfolded and refolded it. It's entirely up to you, of course. A summer in Egypt would offer great material for your writing. It would be an interesting experience and useful on your resume. You don't want to go home to North Carolina for 3 months, do you? And you hated working in the library last summer. Putting myself in your shoes, if I were your age and graduating with 3 months looming before me, I'd at least meet her. I took the paper out of her hand. Whatever Eleanor's motive, the job might be something to consider. Could be a win-win for both of us. Maybe I'll call her. Good. She leaned back in her chair and sipped her coffee. The pearls settled into the crevice between her perfect breasts. She followed my gaze to her chest. Would you like to come to the apartment for some dinner tonight? Or are you committed to champagne with your roommates? A confident smile played around her mouth. I wanted to, and I didn't want to. I put off the decision. Can I call you later? If I'm going to contact Cassandra Stillwell, I should do it now, before she finds somebody else. Of course. She was surprised I hadn't jumped at the chance to be with her. Her shrug had a studied nonchalance to it. Good enough for her.
That's great, Jane. I love hearing you read your stuff too. So, oh, wonderful. So I'm gonna now. You said your follow-up book that you're writing is also a mysteries. Is it related to this book as well?
No, totally different and totally new characters. The next one is called The Payback Murders, and it's about a serial killer. And one of the characters is an agoraphobic book editor.
Oh. Well, that should be very interesting. I'm sure. I love your characters, so that'll be great. I look forward to seeing that. So awesome. Well, hang around for a little bit. As soon as we get our last readings in, we're going to take questions from the audience. So if you're out there watching us, there's a little sign there reminding you can get a discount if you go to the Desert Palm website directly. You can get stuff on Amazon too, and they're going to be giving away a full set of books and copies of books, signed books, ebooks, that sort of thing. I don't know what other kind of swag Lee Winter's got piled up somewhere, but I'm sure that she'll take care of y'all. So our next person today to finish up our reading is going to be Sylvia Patience. She's also in California, and she writes middle grade books for 8 to 12-year-olds, and she's got a book called The Weaver's Daughter that got a Moonbeam Children's Book Awards. So that's pretty awesome. So again, the stable is deep at Desert Palm. So she writes fantasy stuff and some other things. You want to tell us about some of that and read us a little bit, Sylvia?
Sure. Thank you, McGee. Yes, I write for children, so I'm kind of a oddball in the Desert Palm Press authors. And I wanted to say, well, I'm going to read from a couple selections from this book, The Weaver's Daughter, and I'll be giving away a signed copy in the what do you call it? In the giveaway. I also wanted to say this book is about it's an immigration story, and it's about a young Maya girl from the Yucatan. And I think it's important to point out that writing from the perspective of someone from a different culture is a sensitive issue, and I wanted to acknowledge and to thank my two sensitivity readers and culture consults. Linda Medina Martinez crossed the border herself as a child with her family, and Edber Dietz Yam, he advised me on the Yucatec Maya culture and language, and they helped me create a more authentic story than I could have by myself. And I also want to keep in our hearts the thousands of children, many of whom are traveling alone, currently making the dangerous journey from Central America to cross into the U.S. to escape poverty and violence. So I'm going to read two short selections. The first is the first chapter of the book. Sometimes people disappear into the north and are never heard from again. No one knows what becomes of them. Every spring, Papa crosses the border to Los Estados Unidos, the United States, to spend half the year working there. It's been nearly a year this time, and he hasn't returned. At first, his letters came farther apart. Money came less often. Now we hear nothing. I try not to think about all the things that can happen to someone across the border. I speak to him in my thoughts. Papa, I miss you. Please come home. When I was little, Papa and Cheech, my mother's mother, took care of me. They loved me when Mama could not. Even now, if Mama speaks to me, she looks past me or through me as if I am a ghost to her. She doesn't look at me the way I see other mothers look at their children. Today, when I come home from selling her weaving in the plaza, she is working at her backstrap loom as usual. She kneels on the floor of the patio, one end of the loom tied to a post and the other held by a strap around her back. She works the shuttle back and forth between threads of many colors. All her attention is on her work. Does she even know I'm here? Cheech is cooking in her outdoor kitchen. Hola, Achel, bashkawalig, ¿a comes? She's asking how I am, if I'm hungry, in Mayan mixed with Spanish. Although hundreds of years have passed since the conquistadores came from Spain, we Yucatec Maya are still proud to speak our language. Cheech is Mayan for grandmother. Yes, gracias, I'm hungry. I watch Mama. Her dark hair in its usual braids is wrapped around her head. Her eyes are far away. I feel the familiar tightness in my heart. I want her to notice me. As if she hears my wish, she removes the strap of the loom from around her back and stands, motioning to me. Mija, daughter, come inside. I must talk with you. See, Mama, my heart soars. Will she talk to me as a daughter? Has she heard from Papa? I follow her inside the house. She sits on a cushion and motions me to another. Daughter, I have something to tell you. When I work at my loom, I leave this world. I become one of the ancestors weaving in the long ago Maya city before the Spaniards built Merida. Why is she telling me this? As odd as it sounds, it isn't unexpected. I see how Mama disappears into her weaving every day. After you were born, I bled so much I almost died. I had an operation, a bad infection, and another operation. A month passed before I saw you. I looked down at the swept white earth floor to hide the tears that come to my eyes when she speaks of my birth. Though she has never talked to me about it before, I know she almost died. I believe that is the reason she doesn't love me. When I finally returned to my weaving, I began to find myself in that other place. Mama's hands move a little as if she's weaving. Now I become that woman as soon as I kneel at my loom. Today, while you were gone, I was at my loom in that ancient city, thinking only of the pattern. Suddenly, the goddess Ischel rose before me out of the cloth. She was as beautiful and fierce as the jaguar. My name is Ischel, after the jaguar goddess of weaving. How frightening it must have been for Mama to see the goddess appear in this vision. Imagine how I trembled. Mama's eyes open wide and her voice strains. I bowed my head before her. In a terrible voice, she said, Woman, I am not pleased. I want better things for your daughter, my namesake. You must send her to her father, or I will no longer bless your weaving. It takes a moment to realize what Mama is saying. A chill shakes me, and my heart begins to pound. So you see, hija, you will have to make the journey to the north. Her stern tone allows for no argument. It is perhaps as terrible to me as the voice of the goddess was to her. Mama's dark eyes look straight into mine. I am not yet 12. I shiver to think of leaving home. Although I miss Papa, is it possible for me to travel so far? We Maya take dreams and visions seriously, but I'm just a girl. It's a long way to the United States. My legs feel weak, and I don't think I can stand. Mama has never behaved as a mother to me. Now she wants me to leave. The only words I can find at the moment are, "Sí, Mama." And the other section I'm going to read is part of chapter 19. And this takes place when Ischel and her friend Rosa are attempting to cross the border through a smuggler's tunnel. I can only stare at those steps leading into a black pit. I swallow to keep whatever's in my stomach from coming up. It's too late to turn back. I don't want to scare Rosa by telling her this is my nightmare place. I tuck my dangling purse inside the sweatshirt and moisten my dry lips with my tongue. Aiming the light at my feet, I start down the first step. The third step is slick. My foot slips. I slide to the next step and lurch forward, catching myself with one hand on the wall. A shower of dirt hits my feet. You okay? Rosa whispers. Yes, it's slippery. Be careful. I shine the light back for her. Another cautious step down and another. Can you close the trap door? I'll try. She turns around and pulls the heavy door over her head, lowering it slowly until it thuds shut behind her. Now the beam of light shows the bottom of the stairs. A few more steps and I'm there. The air is stale and chilly. I'm thankful for Marta's sweatshirt. I'm cold, Rosa whispers, tightening her rebozo around her shoulders. I point the light at the walls, the floor, the roof of the tunnel. It's large enough for us to walk upright. A tall person would have to stoop. The walls and roof are dirt, supported by timbers. Some cardboard boxes are scattered around, torn open and empty. It's creepy, Rosa says. What do you think was in those boxes? Who knows, except our breathing. Then something scuttles away from my feet. Rosa squeaks. I flash the light around. Nothing moves. My heart pounds. A rat! Her voice sounds hoarse. Maybe we should go back. Rosa, I turn around. You've seen rats before. Yes, I hate them. One of my brothers still has a scar where a rat bit his arm when he was a baby. The space feels too close and smells of mice or rats. I'm afraid the tunnel will collapse and bury us alive. The light wobbles in my shaking hands as I shine it around again. If we went back, what would we do? She doesn't answer. We have to go on. We're not babies. Rats won't bother us. We'll be out soon. I hope that's true. The timbers holding up the roof look solid. I take a step ahead, then another. My feet silent on the dirt floor. Rosa follows almost on top of me, holding onto the bag hanging on my back. She's always been bold and confident. Her fear makes me more afraid. We walk in silence for several minutes. I turn to look back. The flashlight seems weaker, a pale yellow beam. The stairs have been swallowed in darkness. It must be 15 minutes by now, Rosa says into my ear. Where's the end? I aim the light in front, but see only blackness beyond the dim beam. When I start walking again, something sticky grabs at my face. I force down a scream and jump back, almost knocking Rosa over. I claw at strands of spider web, thinking of a spider crawling in my hair, like in my dream. I swat at the creeping feeling in my scalp. The flashlight flies out of my hand. It goes dark. Spots of light dance in front of my eyes, fading to blackness. And that's all that I'm going to read.
Wow. That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Now, do you have, I just have to ask you, I know it's not question time yet, but do you, I know you said you had sensitivity readers that had done some work for you. Do you also have young people that you test some of these stories out on as you're developing, easy for me to say, developing them?
Yeah. Not really. My grandchildren have gotten too old. I mean, yeah, they used to, but now they're all older. I have critique groups though that we critique each other's writings and we meet regularly, and so that helps.
Great. Well, I'm glad that everybody read today. I am glad I do not have to follow up this team of readers. My goodness, everybody was awesome. So we're going to get everybody back up on screen, and Ellen's going to help with some questions that y'all have gotten on Facebook. And drum roll for Ellen. And if y'all didn't know she's from New York, you'll know in a hot minute.
Okay, the first question is from Kim, and the question is, how has COVID affected your writing, or has it?
I mostly work in sci-fi and fantasy, so not much. But a manuscript I'm toying with does have. No, actually, I have a better answer. My novel Eclipse, which is a sci-fi follow-up to the Dark Horizons trilogy, it's a space opera, and before COVID, in the before times, the deadly danger of that book was a plague released by a fascist government. So it was really awkward when I released it finally in December of last year. I was like, okay, so I know that there is a biological weapon as the scary thing in this book, but it has nothing to do with the pandemic. And I was scared that like people wouldn't want to read it. But I did, while editing, change the way that some of the healthcare professionals in the book behaved in terms of like masking and bunny suits. And the whole pandemic made me much more conscious of the precautions that healthcare workers would take, even in a galaxy far, far away, while dealing with a potentially infectious disease.
All right. Jane, did you have something you wanted to say?
I did. You know, we're all suffering so much these last 2 years, and writing has just been a godsend. I don't, it's either binge watching Netflix or writing, and it's just been a wonderful, escape. So that's a personal, selfish kind of answer to it, but what a wonderful hobby to have, at this time.
Right.
I'll
Rae, Jazzy, before you go, Rae, what's your cat's name? Because that's
Her name is Lawson, and she is 3 years old. She's a very good girl. She likes to keep me company while I write.
I just knew the Facebook chat was going to blow up with who's the cat, so I'm sorry, Jazzy, to interrupt.
No worries. I was going to say that, writing is a solitary endeavor and selfish in the sense that you have to put yourself somewhere away from the family in order to create. But during the COVID, the pandemic, I haven't really been able to do that as much because I have 2 children that are at home doing online schooling. So it's been tougher. I haven't been able to write because of they're underfoot for over a year now. And I've, at the beginning of the pandemic, I had just come back from a writer's retreat. So I was able to write, it was the very beginning, and it wasn't like it is now. So, but I would say that has slowed me down big time just with the writing. And I'm looking forward to being able to write again. I'm hoping now that the kids are starting to go back to school, I'll be able to be selfish again and go in my room and write for hours.
Sylvia, do you want to add anything?
Well, it really hasn't made much of a change, except that my critique groups meet online on Zoom now instead of in person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Okay, next question is from Peggy. What was one of the most surprising things you've learned in creating your books?
Well, since everyone else is silent, I learned just how deep my hatred for capitalism runs while writing the Lucky Breaks series. And I also had the fun experiment of learning different ways that our society could be better. Because in Lucky 8 specifically, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a utopia, but spoiler alert, there is a hidden city that is a lot better than our current society. And coming up with ways that such a place, even underground, would come up with power and food and how their government would be run, that required a lot of research into potential ways that society could be improved. And I feel like I learned a lot from that and really grew as a person. And it was pretty beautiful. I think lots of stories concerning queer characters are always very dark. And Lucky 7 and 8 take place in a dystopian future, but to have that little bit of hope in there and to say, this is how things could be better if people have hope, was really, really beautiful to write about.
Well, I've learned a lot about writing over the years that I've been doing it. I think my writing's improved a lot. And I've also done a lot of research on each of my books and learned a lot from the research that I've done about the topics.
I'll just say, Sylvia, you write beautifully. You really are a beautiful writer. I'll bring it down a level. I learned about writing sex scenes. I started out really struggling with that. And somebody gave me early on some really good advice. She said, well, just remember it isn't you that you're writing this scene about. It's somebody else. It's like you're, watching a TV show or something. And so I've actually gotten to where I enjoy it.
I've learned that it's very therapeutic. That it's magical because you start writing about this person's life or these people's lives, and you're able to process little parts of your own life too while you're doing that. So you're able to kind of rip it apart and review it and learn from maybe aspects of your life you didn't really take another look at or kind of shoved down in your memory.
Yeah.
Jazzy, I have a question for you. I write historical as well as what I consider contemporary romance set in the 80s and 90s. And I was horrified to discover the GCLS considers that historical, because anything 25 years ago is historical compared to what I thought of 50 years ago. Just your thoughts? Maybe I'm in left field here.
No, it's funny. Mine was almost going to be categorized. Undertow was almost categorized as historical because half of it happens in the past, in the 80s and 90s. But then the rest of it's in present time. So yeah, that's why in the part that I read about the Nokia cell phone, a lot of people won't understand why her wrist was starting to hurt. When they first came out, there were these huge, they look like walkie-talkies, they're huge. And if you're drunk, your hand is starting to tire after a moment.
Yeah, exactly. Now, do you find yourself having to look up things sometimes to remember, gee, when did that game come out?
Yeah, I did a lot of research, and actually that's one of the other surprising things. Is just you think you know things, and then when you're going to write it in a book, you have to look it up. You need to make sure it's not out of the time that you're trying to write. And when I was doing the election information, I mean, I had to do some research for the national elections as well as the Massachusetts elections. And the Massachusetts elections were in the 1980s and 90s. So again, I had my memories of it, but I still need to look some of that up to make sure it was accurate, since it's historical fiction now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have another question. What inspires you guys to write? So what's your inspiration? What made you write?
Well, I'll piggyback on what Jazzy just said. My first book is called Across a Crowded Room. And I was working out some things that had happened to me in my past. And it is a historic novel and romance. And so I kind of thought that's what I would do. I'd write this book and I would kind of get it out on the table, and that would be fun and interesting. That would be the end of it. But then the second book, Jobina's Blues, showed up, and Jobina showed up, and so that came along. So that's how I got started. It was just kind of purging some personal stuff.
Oh, there's a puppy dog.
Well, I've been kind of a writer all my life. My mother was a poet, and so I just naturally started writing poems when I was a kid. And I never thought about that I would have the focus or the knowledge to write a novel until much later. But I was participating in writing groups, and I kind of got an idea of how it was done. And I got an inspiration for my first book. It was going to be a short story, but it just grew into a novel. Different things have inspired the different books.
Jazzy, while we wait for Ray's dog to calm down from the impending dragon attack.
Oh yeah, the dog is calm. Sorry.
Oh, okay. You want to answer?
Car door slammed 3 blocks away.
Got it. Totally. Do you want to answer something before Jazzy takes a stab at it?
Sure. What was the question?
I'm pretty sure it was what inspired you to write.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, what inspires you to write? Well, honestly, I got tired of reading very sad stories and watching very sad stories about queer people on television. It's very disheartening, especially if you grow up in a homophobic environment, to see characters that you relate to constantly end up sad or dead or worse. So when I first discovered queer fiction written by queer people where the endings were more hopeful, it was like a lifeline for me, and I want to be that for the next generation coming up. I want to show them that, yeah, you can be happy and queer, you can be happy and a lesbian, you can be happy and bisexual or trans, or it's just, you deserve to try to be happy. And you can find love with people who love and appreciate you. So that's where I draw inspiration from. I do think there's still definitely a problem, but things have gotten a lot better in recent years on TV and in books. And I also, one more quick note, that doesn't mean that you can never have a sad ending. I have unfortunately seen lots of people who agree with me that there needs to be more queer happy endings. Kind of poo-poo on sad books that might be cathartic for other readers at a different point in their life. So, there needs to be both kinds. I personally like adding to the more positive and uplifting types of stories out there.
All right, Jazzy, what inspires you, my friend?
Well, it's similar a bit to what Rae was just saying. When I was growing up, wasn't the best childhood, so I used it as a way to escape reality, and to read about happy endings and other worlds, taking me away from what was going on in my life. And then as I got older, I found fan fiction, which was awesome. So I started writing about these movies and TV shows and books, and fix what they got wrong, which usually was that they didn't have same-sex relationships. And then as I got older, I was teaching English for a while and teaching them how to write poetry, teaching them how to write essays and stories. And I got the bug from that too. I really just wanted to do it myself. And if I'm able to teach someone something through my books, that's awesome. But at the very least, I want to touch a chord within the readers so that they can say, yeah, I can identify that, or I understand that, or or at the very least, just help them get away from what's going on in their lives for a couple hours and read someone else's life and get something from that.
Awesome. Well, we have approached our hour mark much faster than I thought we would. It feels like we've just been here. I sure appreciate everybody who has taken time yesterday and today to come and sit and read and to share. Those of you who watched live, for sure, the people who watch it later, all the folks from Desert Palm Press being willing to give out the prizes and all of that. So I hope that everybody's had a chance to put some comments and things, that sort of stuff. Don't forget 10% discount on the website. So it's been great to get to meet everybody, and hopefully we'll see everybody in person soon. And good afternoon, night, day, morning, whatever y'all are having in your neck of the woods.
Thank you, McGee.
Bye.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, McGee.
And
Yeah,
McGee and
good
Ellen,
job.
thanks so much.
And Ellen, great job.
You guys were awesome.